The sound of glass shattering cut through the silence like a scream. Maya's wine glass hit the tile and exploded into red splinters, staining the floor between us. Her face twisted with fury. "You're acting insane, Daniel. It's just one dinner. Stop being so controlling." Just one dinner. With her ex. The same man she used to cry over for months after their breakup. The same one she once admitted she'd have married if only he hadn't cheated. Now she was meeting him as friends. I stared at her across the dim kitchen, heart thundering against my ribs. The smell of cabernet and burnt pasta filled the air, heavy and suffocating. "You don't get to call me controlling," I said quietly, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I'm your husband. Not your warden. But I know what this is." Maya scoffed, crossing her arms. "You think everything's about cheating. Not every man is like you, Daniel. You're projecting." That hit harder than I expected. I'd cheated once, 5 years ago, before we were married. A one-time, stupid mistake on a drunken night that I confessed to her, begged forgiveness for, and spent years making up for. She forgave me, or at least she said she did. But in that moment, the way she looked at me, smug and venomous, I realized she'd never let it go. And maybe she was about to use it as her justification. She left that night in a black dress she hadn't worn in years, the one with the low back she'd once said made her feel dangerous. I stood at the window as her taillights disappeared down the street. My stomach churned. I told myself not to overthink, not to go down that spiral of paranoia I thought I'd buried. She deserved freedom. Trust was about letting go. Still, my hand trembled as I opened my phone and scrolled through her Instagram story. Nothing. Not yet. I poured myself another drink and stared at the clock. 8:47 p.m. 9:22 p.m. 10:01 p.m. No call. No text. Just silence. By 10:30, I caved. I grabbed my keys and drove to the restaurant she'd mentioned. The place was small and dimly lit, one of those modern rustic bistros that always smelled of rosemary and money. My chest tightened as I saw her car parked right outside. Through the large glass window, I spotted her instantly. She was sitting across from him, Mark. Her ex. The same grin, the same slicked hair. They weren't touching, but the way she leaned toward him, smiling softly, eyes glimmering, it wasn't platonic. It was familiar. Intimate. When his hand brushed hers across the table, she didn't pull away. My jaw locked. I couldn't breathe. I should have walked out. I should have left her to her choices. But instead, I did something worse. I took a photo. Just one. Her hand in his. Her head tilted, laughing at something he said. Then I turned and left. That night, I didn't confront her. She came home past midnight, smelling faintly of wine and expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She tiptoed into the bedroom and froze when she saw me sitting awake. "Didn't mean to wake you," she whispered. I studied her face. "Did you have fun?" She hesitated, then forced a smile. "It was fine. Just catching up." I nodded slowly. "Good. I'm glad you're reconnecting." She blinked, suspicious. "You're okay with this now?" I smiled. "Completely." She looked relieved, and that relief was the cruelest betrayal of all. For 3 days, I said nothing. I acted normal. I cooked breakfast, kissed her forehead, sent her memes. The calm before a storm she didn't know was brewing. Then on Friday, I invited Mark to lunch. He didn't hesitate. "I'm glad you called," he said, extending his hand when we met. "Maya mentioned you were open-minded." My stomach twisted, but I kept my expression calm. "You misunderstood," I said. "I'm not open-minded. I'm observant." His grin faltered. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, showing him the photo I'd taken. "I mean I know what's happening. And I know you're still the same manipulative bastard you were before." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You think she'll leave me for you? You think I'll just sit by and let that happen?" I leaned forward. "You don't know her like I do. You don't know what guilt does to her. But you're about to find out." Then I stood and left. That night, I texted her the photo. No words. Just the image. She called me instantly. Daniel, it's not what it looks like. I laughed quietly. You know, that's what I told you 5 years ago. She went silent. I could hear her breathing, shaky, panicked. Please, can we talk? Sure, I said. Dinner tomorrow. Our favorite place. When she arrived, her face was pale. No makeup, hair tied back, the version of her that always showed up when she was afraid of losing something. I'm sorry, she whispered before I could speak. It was stupid. I just wanted to feel wanted again. You've been distant. Cold. I've been loyal, I said. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't sleep with him. I know, I replied. That's the worst part. She frowned, confused. What? You didn't need to sleep with him to betray me. You just needed to make me doubt you again. And you succeeded. She broke down then, sobbing quietly at the table, whispering apologies between breaths. But something in me had already snapped. I leaned back, calm. Do you remember when you said I was controlling? She nodded weakly. I'm not controlling, Maya. I'm deliberate. And now you'll learn what that means. The next morning, she woke up to find her phone, laptop, and keys gone. Only a note on the table. You wanted freedom. You have it. But not from me, from us. When she called me crying later, I didn't answer. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood something terrible and freeing. Love isn't always about forgiveness. Sometimes it's about letting the other person drown in the same silence they gave you. And she did. Every unanswered call. Every ignored message. That was my regret turned inside out, handed back to her, piece by piece.